This is the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show. Real stories, real success in Twin Cities real estate. Join your hosts, Adam Tafel and Tim Swierczek, as they dive into the world of Twin Cities real estate investing. Together, they share valuable insights and practical tips to help both new and seasoned investors navigate the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. With a focus on relatable stories from real people, this show will empower you with the knowledge and confidence to thrive in your investing journey. Guys, take it from here.
What's up, Tim?
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well, man.
Yeah.
Hadley just took off, and that was a great conversation. He's an easy guy to talk to. You can tell he's in sales. Definite sales guy.
Yeah. I mean, I've always enjoyed talking to him from the. Well, we became friends pretty quickly, and just like it's easy to get to know him, and he's an open book. It comes up in the episode. He's happy to help people when it benefits them, even if it doesn't benefit him, and that's just kind of the. He wants to be your resource when it comes to hard money.
Yeah. He made it very clear in this episode that, you can reach out to him if you need something. Did he say that?
Yeah,
he said to reach out to us.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Hadley comes from a somewhat prominent real estate family in the Twin Cities, which is cool and something that, like, I don't know about you, like I think about, like I'm not going to become Hornig Properties, but it's cool to think that like I'll have grandkids someday. And like the things I'm doing today are going to help them build a business. And that's totally real. Yeah.
And you never know. It might be Tafel Properties by then, right? It could be your grandson, And actually, so like the current, what's his name? Bill Pulte, right? Bill Pulte is the grandson of the guy who started Pulte Homes, right? Like that's a grandfather to grandson, type legacy, if you will. And then we was talking about, I can't think of Riverside Plaza, which people affectionately call the ghettos in the sky. That's a grandfather to grandson relationship as well.
Really?
Grandfather bought it in, like, I want to say it was 1980, 81, something like that. I met the grandson. That's why I say Chris Sherman, really smart guy. Oh my gosh, if we could get him on here, that'd be pretty cool. But he's a big shooter.
Sure.
Anyway, I think that people will enjoy this episode and find it interesting and really learn a lot about hard money.
Investors, if a deal gets messy, call Network Title. They can handle the BRRRR, the 1031, mixed use, commercial, whatever it takes so you can close on time. Mentor of mine, guy who I really respect, Kirk Duckwall, says working with Network Title is kind of like having another personal assistant. That's how on the ball these people are. Network Title, complex deals made simple. Link in the show notes. Welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show, brought to you by Shook. Shook is the all-in-one platform to help you manage your rentals, built for real estate investors just like us. Shook has fast automatic payments, which is great. If your mortgage is coming out and your tenant pays on the 8th or the 9th, you want to get the payment quickly. And so with Shook, 1 to 2 business days versus, 5 to 7 days with Apartments.com and other competitors. So that is just one of many reasons why we like Shook Rentals here at this show at $5 per unit per month. It's totally worth checking out shookrentals.com, SHUK rentals.com, or book a live demo in the show notes. Use our code TCREI20. Now on to the main episode.
I mean, just his ability to talk through things and him layering in comedy from time to time is where his brilliance comes in. And so he's just so lucky that the podcast Jen is here.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he would have made it as a pure comedian myself.
Yeah, the skill set that it takes to just like, I love Tim Dillon. It's probably my favorite podcaster right now.
Second favorite behind Theo Vaughn for me. Love Tim Dillon.
He's like perfect politically for me, where he's like common sense, but with like empathy also, but like, I don't know, logic. He's a logical guy. The Tim Dillon Show.
Yeah, just straightforward.
Dude, he's so funny. He's like, I think funnier than all those other guys. But Theo, is certainly his own brand.
Did you watch his Netflix special, Tim Dillon?
I did not. Is it good?
It's excellent.
Really?
Yeah, I was howling through it. I highly recommend watching it. It's really good.
Yeah, you should check out Tim Dillon. But anyways, Theo and Tim both have the skill set where they can just talk by themselves for 2 hours. And I'm sure there's like some sort of outline, but like, yeah, not easy to do. To just rant and make it like, punchline after punchline and full of substance, At least Tim Dillon is like kind of like, he's like the new Jon Stewart.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. Although most people would say Tim Dillon is probably conservative, I think he's very much middle. I think he's more just like, I can't stand idiocy.
Unless you're pretty far left, you're considered conservative. That's just kind of how,
Yeah. I just think Tim Dillon is just anti-stupid. So he can't stand the stupidity from all sides of the political spectrum. Whereas John always was left-leaning. So I've found Tim really refreshing on his podcast.
Well, what's up, Hadley?
Are we on?
I've been recording this.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Great. Nothing much. Getting as much sleep as I can with a 8-month-old and 8-month-old child in my house. It's the first of hopefully more to come. But we're just battling and making sure everything works out here in Minnesota. That's what we're doing right now.
Very cool. How do you guys know each other?
Well, we met through what's now the Rebel group, or the former Millennial Investor Facebook group. It's just Hadley for many years posted, and so did I. So I saw his name all the time and was always interested in what they were doing. And then through the years, I found out that through a recommendation from me on that site, Hadley and his wife started using my friend who is a painter, and so my painter would say, "Oh, I'm doing, Hadley, da-da-da." And so anyway, I always wanted to meet him, and then an event came up where I invited just random people to a Twins game, a Twins suite, and Hadley said he wanted to come, and I was excited.
That's pretty much it.
Kind of what happened, right? And
yeah,
we went to the Twins game and it started introducing each other to our mutual friends, and next thing you know, he's working with my friends, and I'm working with him, and we golf together, and just kind of Yeah,
I was going to say golf really kind of took us to the next level with you kind of over at White Bear Lake, and then me over at Woodhill. We've just been able to kind of embrace and build a stronger relationship over golf, which I never thought was possible for me. I don't really
you're
love
not a
golf.
golfer, right?
Yeah, I don't really love golf, but it's brilliant for networking, and I have a good time regardless, so it all works out.
Yeah. Cool. I'm not good at golf either, for the record. Matter of fact, you're better than me.
I think that's why we get along so well, Tim.
Right.
Of course.
So when people ask you, what do you do for a living? What do you tell them? What's your job?
Yeah, I tell them that I am a private lender.
Okay.
So, from my standpoint, I offer short-term lending out for potential investors to do single-family and small multifamily fix and flips, or, buy and holds. And, within a certain level of time, typically 8 months maturity, I expect the money to come back with interest. It's pretty straightforward. As I'd call them hobbies, I also do short-term rentals with my wife. We currently own or manage 6 short-term rentals. And then I also personally own 4 multifamily properties here in the uptown area of the Twin Cities.
Very cool.
Are your multifamilies? Can you tell us a little bit about the uptown ones that you own?
In terms of just how they're performing,
let's start with just what are they? Like, are they duplexes, whatever? Where are they?
They're mostly 4plexes, and then we have a 10+ Xer in the northeast side of Minneapolis. They're all, it was interesting. We bought a 4plex on Harriet Avenue, and it had a basement unit that was non-conforming, and we've just had a back and forth battle with Minneapolis on essentially the conformity of that unit. They initially gave us approval, and now just as recent as last year, they've now pushed back and said, you know what, that's no longer a conforming unit, and you need to go back to a 4plex. But they're all, doing really well. Occupancy is luckily at like 95%. And we're very fortunate given the fact that Uptown has certainly taken a hit over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that, but I also love talking about the city and like letting people know what the city has problems with. Do you mind getting into more detail about like what the city has a hang up on so people just understand that like what they might encounter, why it's not maybe as easy as they think it is, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
Sure.
what kind of issues do you have and how do you address them?
I mean, my family has been in the multifamily business now for over 60 years.
Right.
And, we've developed and built up a pretty small but significant empire here in the Twin Cities. And unfortunately, the crime has just really taken a toll on the city. We didn't, back in the day, have a weekly or monthly crime report email that would go out. Now we do. That kind of informs us of certain things that have happened in and around our buildings. And it's really taken an impact, particularly on single females in the Uptown area. We've seen that as a demographic to dwindle significantly.
Really?
And anecdotally, I would say that the vast majority of those females have now just resorted to going to North Loop if they're going to live in the city at all. From our standpoint, Uptown continues to be a place where crime is a little bit more rampant than we'd like. I don't know if you saw the Star Tribune article where they talked about carjackings and car theft. But
I've seen different things over the years, but nothing recent. Is there something that came out recently?
Yeah, they were saying that there's a pretty decent uptick on that. And, unfortunately, we had an Airbnb in Northeast that experienced a couple of car break-ins for some of our guests over the past couple of years. So certainly something that needs to be fixed. I'm just an investor.
Sure.
I'm not in politics, so I don't know how to fix it. But it's certainly something that my dad, being a born and raised Minnesotan, is really sad about and hopes there can be a solution soon.
Has there been a impact on vacancy and rents that you can speak on?
It's just different clientele. We from our standpoint, the vacancies pretty much stayed the same. We luckily are in kind of a B grade as far as kind of what type of buildings we buy. And so we're not demanding the highest levels of rent. We don't have a ton of amenities in a lot of our buildings. But that seems to be really easy and attainable for a lot of people here in the Twin Cities to actually go and rent. So it's just been a different demographic that's been renting. But in terms of actual impact, luckily so far, knock on, I don't have any wood here, but so far everything's been going fine on that front.
Cool.
Good.
What about the this specific non-conforming unit? Can you speak to any specifics there on like what were they asking for? Did you feel it was unreasonable? Did you try to come up with a solution?
I think it was actually pretty surprising that they approved it as a conforming unit to begin with. I didn't think it had appropriate levels of sunlight, and for whatever reason, they approved it a few years ago, and they've since kind of changed their minds since we had to do a re-permit on it. So in my estimation, I think they made the right choice.
Okay.
And I think that's totally fine.
Got it. It's just frustrating when they change their mind, right? Is there any way to rectify it? Can you like cut into the foundation to create another window or anything?
I'm sure we could put in egress windows and things of that nature to make it more conforming. But at this point, you know how much an egress window costs. And so from our standpoint, we just don't really think it's worth it. And the property's cash flowing well enough.
Okay.
Luckily, looking across our portfolio, we've got mostly fourplexes. So all of those were initially bought on a fixed rate mortgage, and they're all bought relatively well on that fixed rate. So over the course of what we've seen and the inflation of pricing and our rent increases, the property still cash flows pretty well. So we don't necessarily need that fifth unit.
Sure.
To make it a performing unit.
So I've been seeing your family's name for years, all over. You guys are mostly in the Uptown area, right?
Initially, yes, but now I'd say it's about 50% Minneapolis and St. Paul, and now 50% of our portfolio is actually more of the suburban areas of the Twin Cities.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, and we don't have to go too far into this because you're the guest, not your family. But I'm sure people are going to be curious. Can you just tell us a little bit? You said your grandpa started the business.
Yeah.
Can you just give us like a brief backstory on that?
Sure. He was actually a factory worker. He was on the assembly line building hearing aids way back, and just always felt that there was something more out there and didn't want to do that the rest of his life. He was the weirdo in the factory. He would have the Wall Street Journal, and he'd go to the bathroom during lunch break, and he'd just read it on the toilet. He wasn't going to the bathroom, but he just needed his time and space alone to just read that paper. And he always just felt that there was a better way to go. Eventually landed on real estate as something that he wanted to do, and saved enough money. Got fortunate that there was some family money in the older generation that was willing to lend him. And he was able to buy the first multifamily building for us. I'm going to screw it up, but I think in 1962, 1961. And then by the power of 1031 exchange, over the course of many, many years, we've been able to defer all of our taxes to continue to grow our property base. And so I think right now, across the entire family, we probably sit roughly around 5,000 units here in the Twin Cities and surrounding markets. So we owe a great debt to Grandpa Don in starting this whole thing for us, no question.
Really cool. And growing up in that kind of environment, were you involved? Were you mowing lawns, or did you always think that you were going to go into real estate?
I actually didn't. From my standpoint, I did do some work here and there. I certainly mowed lawns. I did some painting. Although most of the staff did not appreciate my painting, so
that's why you hire it out now.
They moved me to putty. They felt that I could do that a lot better. So, at that point, I kind of got my understanding of how the property management world worked and what the multifamily looked like. But I always kind of wanted to go into the marketing space. And so I just kind of went in a different path in my early 20s. And it was just by happenstance of wanting to move back to Minnesota and start a family that I happened to come across a hard money lending job. And luckily, by the good grace of me owning real estate and purchasing real estate over the years, along with a kind of a sales background, it seemed like the perfect fit for that hard money lender to take a chance on me. And that's kind of how I found myself back into the mix with real estate.
If somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, I think I want to be a hard money lender someday, any like certain boxes you need to check first? And I'm not saying to like become an employee of Pime Financial or something, but like actually be the lender. Well, what are the basic minimum requirements?
Well, the basic minimum requirements is
you got to be good looking, right?
You got to be really good looking. Take a good look right here. This is what it takes. No, from my standpoint, I actually do think working with a hard money lender is probably paramount to get started because it's all about a track record. If you're going to start a hard money lending company, you need to show proof of concept. You need to be able to showcase that you know what you're talking about. So from my standpoint, my father and mother luckily graced me with some of their own money to start my hard money lending business. But that was only because I had 5 years of previous experience in the field, knew the best borrowers, understand the basic concepts of what real estate valuation looked like. And from there, I could really build confidence. And now from there, you take that proof of concept, you're then able to talk to more people that are a little bit more extended. My uncle was the second person that stepped in line and said, I'm willing to invest. And so I think from there, that's really what it takes, is to really show that you have proof of concept and you have a history of good performance. That being said, hard money lending is all about having money. That's really the key point. So if you have it through your relatives, or if you have a good relationship with a bank, these are ways in which you can try and get started. However, I really feel that I'm just very fortunate in having mom and dad's or initial funds to kind of get me started and showcase a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Sure. Have you guys worked together on any projects? Has he lent?
I'm embarrassed to say he sent me a couple of deals, and unfortunately I've been fully committed elsewhere. So we have not yet been able to work on a deal so far, but I'm antsy and ready to go whenever I do have funds available.
We've talked through a few, and for those who don't, I mean, like Hadley is basically alluding to, you can run out of money as a hard money lender, right? And
Very
sometimes
fast.
your money doesn't come back, right? Yeah, I mean, at anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 or even $600,000 at a time, it doesn't take long, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, right now I have a capital stack of $2.75 million, and to your point, it did not take long for that to just whistle right through. And luckily, there are some clients that I work with that get things done within 3.5 months, but then there are others that take more than a year. And at that point, you really are just kind of saying, can they just? I have these other people sending me deals. I really want to keep the juice flowing here. But you take your licks how you can, and I have no doubt, Tim, that we will work together. And that you will be very satisfied with my premium rates.
Excellent. Well, and I think this is like, I don't know that a lot of people I would imagine they're listening to this haven't worked with a hard money lender, and they probably don't understand some, what makes it important for you. They probably think it's solely about the rate you charge, and I know that's a factor, but it's also, like you said, about returning money. Can you talk about like how important that is for a hard money lender to churn the money and use it multiple times, like in a year, and how you see that aspect of it?
Well, I think it ultimately depends on how they set up their structure of loan term. For me, I'm personally sitting at 2 to 3 points origination on every loan that I do, and I'm functioning from 10 to 15% annualized interest on the rate. And so from my standpoint, I would prefer that our investors get the property done as quickly as possible, make the profit, be happy, want to stay in this field of real estate investing, and continue to use me so that I can then make more money on the origination fee as they continue to churn. That's how I see it. Now, I'm well aware of several markets. I've been doing some deals in Sioux Falls, some deals in Des Moines, and there is one person in Des Moines that has a very fascinating setup where they only charge half a point, but it's 18% interest. And so it all really depends on what they want to have happen. There are also, unfortunately, some hard money lenders that do get involved full well knowing that they're probably going to foreclose on the property, and they see the equity margin that's on the back end. Those people exist. I'm going to be honest. They exist. But, from my standpoint, I'm just here to see client success. I want us to continue to grow in a relationship and really foster something really strong and long-term.
Right. But for a business model like yours, it's important in many ways that it does turn the money, but also that they complete the project successfully. Of course. Complete it on time, that kind of thing, right? Because just thinking about, so I'm thinking like there are many different types of hard money lenders, and it's fair to say that you work with people with experience, correct?
Correct.
And
that's correct.
I know the answer to this, but can you share with people like why that would be important to you versus a different business model?
Yeah, the greatest risk in the 5 years that I was working with Renovo Capital, the previous company I worked for, were people that didn't know what they were doing during the rehab. When you give out the money to start the construction and they somehow botch it, that's money you can't get back. In fact, you might have to double down on your money to correct the mistakes they've made on that rehab. Because in the initial valuation, I've had several years of experience understanding what the after repair value of a property is. So in terms of the actual valuation, I feel very, very confident in that. Again, if you look at like market corrections, anytime that I think there's a shady or unfortunate forecast that might be coming, I add that into my valuation. So again, I feel very confident in that.
Yeah.
What you don't have confidence in is if you use somebody brand new and they somehow screw up the actual rehab itself. And now you're stuck in a really bad situation where it didn't matter if your valuation was right or not. Now you need to come up with additional funds And hopefully, as a lender, I'm just getting my principal back.
See, from my perspective, and I'd like to hear maybe a specific story from you.
Sure.
It doesn't sound that risky to me, although I'm sure it is. But I need you to educate me, because if somebody sucks at construction and this place already needs to be demoed and renovated, and they do a really horrible job, or I'm sure you can do catastrophic things to like permanently damage a property, which is going to be hyper rare. But I guess if I have to take that property back and they've already done like a shit job with the reno, and you've already factored in my equity margin on a potential back end, if I have to take it back, how much worse can somebody make a property? I guess that's what I'm asking.
It's not necessarily the end condition, is it?
No, you're typically talking about somebody that screwed up on the materials that they purchased. You're talking about somebody that is just in a horrible looking design. But to me, like the big problems are ones where they didn't pull permits and you have to start over. Sure. They get caught. They say, "I'm sorry, you need to, rip up the walls again and redo the electrical. We're pretty sure you didn't pull a permit and this doesn't look right." And that definitely happened to us a couple of times when I was at Renovo. And again, you're right. You build in the margins, but you have to consider you need to hire an attorney to make sure that you actually cover the foreclosure costs. Then you have to think about how long it takes in Minnesota with the foreclosure, making sure that they're in an event of default. And so now you're talking about a long process. You're talking probably 18 months before you ever get the property back since you closed on it in the first place. So you've basically probably lost all the interest that's been accrued over that period of time. Meanwhile, I'm still getting charged by my family at 8%.
Right.
So that's owed no matter what I do. And ultimately, you're just doing whatever you can to try and finish the project. And luckily, I have crews. I have some people that I can work with to get it done. But it's very, very likely that I'm just going to lose money in that deal, and I'm going to have to move forward and just take the loss. Which is, again, the big reason why I don't really want to work with people that are inexperienced. I want people that know exactly what they're doing, that can get through the project, and I don't have to worry, and I can sleep well at night. That's kind of how I feel about it.
And have you, I forget, how long have you been doing this yourself?
Myself?
Yeah.
Since May of 2024. So I'm very, very new, but almost a year and a half.
So I'm guessing you have not gone through a foreclosure yet.
That is correct. Yes. Thank you.
Sweet.
Anytime I need you to knock on wood, please do so. Yeah. That would be great, because I don't have any. This glass is, I don't know. So that works.
So to put it into some kind of hard numbers, I've seen these myself. I know how people get into trouble on this. It might be something similar to, this is not uncommon. Like, let's say you have $100,000 spread on a rehab, which all of a sudden enough is not enough, but let's just pretend that one sneaks through. And 70 of that is a combination of profit and rehab costs. And to get a $70,000 job, you're expecting that it'll take $40,000. They spend 45 and they don't get it done. Maybe their contractor walks away from them. Maybe their contractor does part of the work, but starts changing the price because it really should have been 60. But the contractor said 45 and then realized that it was a bad deal and walks away and leaves them hanging. All of a sudden, you've got $45,000 into it, and the project's not done, and potentially it has to get started over and ripped out. Yeah. Now you're spending another 40 or 60 to have someone do it right,
and you have to bring in a new contractor to finish it off. Yeah, it can get really dicey.
You can end up on the wrong side, $20,000-$30,000 on the opposite side of the coin really quickly. Right?
Yeah, and
another year and a half to get the property back.
Exactly, and honestly, this wasn't always my original idea. When I first started Karma Lending, I was going out and literally saying, I will work with anybody. I just really wanted to get started. I understand basic valuations. And as long as you build in certain processes in the draw constructions, to your point, it's not too risky. You just need to make sure that you're following along and seeing how well they're doing during that process. There was one, my second loan that I did though, luckily, I was working with somebody with extremely high integrity, and we worked through the property together. And I think we came together with some really good terms that were good for me and good for him. But as soon as it was a hoarder house, and as soon as he got all the stuff out of the property, there were structural issues that showed up that we were not aware
They
of.
couldn't see, yeah.
That we just had no idea were there. And obviously, the contractor that he was working with had to change his bids. And it became extremely tight on margins. And we had a conversation about me providing the additional funds for that deal. And unfortunately, that just wouldn't make any sense to me because that puts me at a severe level of risk if for whatever reason there is a market correction, that all of a sudden he's not making money and I might not even get all of my money back either. And so now I have to go down the path of doing a judgment against his personal guarantee, et cetera, et cetera. It's something you just want to avoid completely. This man luckily had another profession that he was doing and said that he was willing to, with every draw I was going to give him through the rest of the project, he was going to bring $6,000 of his own money to level up and fill in the gaps of that construction sworn. And so it worked out perfectly well. I didn't have to do any sort of default rate or anything, even though it took a little bit longer, and it all worked out. But that's what changed my mentality of just thinking, I need people that this is their profession. They know exactly what they're doing. And I can just sleep well at night knowing that they know exactly what they're doing and their livelihoods depend on the success of this business. So that's why I really like it.
I just realized my own mistake too in my calculation there when I was thinking like, oh, you could take the property back. How much worse could they have made it? What I was failing to consider is you funded all of that bad construction.
Correct.
So now you're double funding
I'm double
construction,
funding it. Yeah.
And that could just turn into a huge mess. So that was, yeah, I got you now.
And as Hadley alluded to, his money isn't free either. You know,
Correct.
It costs him money. You know, people hear 10% and think, oh my God, he's making 10% per year. First of all, it's not a year. Second of all, no, he's making maybe 1 or 2 on that, or you know, and the points up front, and there's some costs. Excuse me, outside of, I mean, there's the whole software. There's a whole cost of running a business too. So that 2% probably gets chewed up pretty decently just in that.
Yeah,
and then you're really talking origination fees in many ways, right?
I totally wish this was my own money, is what you're basically saying, but it's not, and that's okay. You know, from my standpoint, I'm making a decent living, and the whole plan is to continue to just grow that capital stack through, like I said earlier, just showcasing more proof of concept and talking to more people that might be interested in investing.
Yeah. So if somebody's listening to this right now and they're wondering, well, I'm not a full-time flipper, will Hadley work with me? Yeah, what's kind of like the bare minimum requirements? Or you legitimately want somebody who is a full-time real estate, like a house flipper?
I think the only exception that I would make on that situation is if they were doing retail remodeling prior to and working in the third-party remodeling world.
Sure.
If they're perfectly raw and looking to get involved in this business, you know, I think there are perfectly set up alternative ways of getting your deals funded.
Well, let me rephrase it. Sorry to cut you off. I'm not asking about somebody raw. I'm asking like somebody's flipped a couple houses or they own, like me personally, I've done like 3 renovations. I own 3 rental properties. Been doing this kind of for 10 years, but not on a huge scale like some of the people. Like, am I somebody who you would consider working with?
We could talk, Adam.
Okay,
we could talk.
word. I'm sweet. And there's gonna be a lot of people listening who are kind of in my boat.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, the issue, right, is that, you know, I've worked with 11 clients over the year and a half that I've been in operation, and most of those people are doing anywhere from 2 to 6 flips a month. And so with every deal that comes back, I typically have clients that I've already committed the capital to, even before satisfaction. So it's always tough to bring in new blood. But that being said, I'm never opposed to having conversations. And even if they don't feel like I'm the right choice or I might not work with them, happy to take the call and put them in the right direction of who they could start with. Because ultimately, if they get the experience that I'm interested in, I want to build that value, showcase that I know pretty much the entire hard money landscape here. Yeah. And once they've established their proof of concept, then we can start building our relationship together.
On my Columbia Heights deal that I did last year, Hadley helped me on that with that same thing, like basically advice. I came to him with, you know, funding because, and he at that time there was a non-compete. He wasn't allowed to fund.
Correct.
Me. And so he said, well, I can't, but I know how you could get this done. And if I were you, this is where I would call. So he's definitely very high integrity when it comes to that and helpful, right?
Yeah. I mean, even despite my non-compete, with Renovo Capital, that was still the place I told you to go to.
Correct. I wasn't going to say the name, but yes.
No,
that's
it's well, they're, obviously dissolving at this time.
Yeah.
But, from my standpoint, I felt that they had a really good product, and that's why my product aligns very similarly to how they were operating as a business.
We can cut this, but I'm just going to be nosy. You have a non-compete, but that just applies to certain. Why did a non-compete?
No, it was
apply?
a certain time frame, not people.
I've been gone from Renovo since October of 2023, and so I had to wait a pretty significant amount of time, which is why I started looking into Sioux Falls, Des Moines, Rochester, and Duluth, because those were not listed as areas for my non-compete.
Got it.
But
this was prior to when you started, essentially.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. And then I also had a non-solicitation agreement, which I more or less kind of felt was more of a loose rule than anything else. I just kind of said, yes, this person was a client at Renovo, but they weren't my client. I didn't have any particular leverage in speaking with Tim. Like, Tim was never my client. He was a client of somebody else's over at Renovo Capital. So I never felt that our relationship was bound by anything from a legal standpoint.
Cool. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting because I don't think everyone knows this, but Renovo did this, and I'm guessing your structure is similar. Maybe you can tell us if someone takes out a loan for you, how do they make payments to you? When is the payment due?
That is exactly the coup de grace of what I took from Renovo Capital. I loved their no monthly payments option. So that's exactly what I've continued to reflect in my business. I have no monthly interest payments. It's all a balloon lump sum at the very end once they've either refinanced or sold the property.
Mm-hmm. I liked it too. Frankly, it takes a lot.
Why wouldn't you?
It takes a lot of the stress out of the flip.
And particularly for the people that I work with who have 2 to 6 going at the same time, that's a lot of overhead if they have to pay those high premium monthly interest payments. So to me, it's always been a really strong option for the people that are really well-to-do in this business, for them to work and operate with somebody that offers that type of product.
Yeah, we had Glenn Williams on not too long ago, and he mentioned that when the market was really tough for him, and his business was hurting. I forget the time frame, but not that long ago, last year I think it was, and he was saying one of the big things for him was he didn't have to make monthly payments. If he did, it was going to be I want to say an extra $20,000 a month or something like that. He had alluded to, and
I'm surprised it wasn't more than that.
Yeah.
I mean,
it might have been,
At one point, I know that he had, over $3 million out in committed loans. So I would think that would be pretty significant as far as the monthly overhead if he had to pay those payments.
Correct. And he had been scaling back, seeing the problem, but it was still probably a big number. So it is very helpful. And I just think most people don't know about that. Other things they might not know about getting a hard money loan. Let's talk a little bit about the process. So,
sure.
Let's stay on the cost for just a second longer. So they're gonna pay different costs based on their experience, right? Mm-hmm. They're also gonna pay different costs based on how much ARV there is, right? Mm-hmm. And potentially how much money they put in. Can you talk about those 3 things real quick and how they impact your decision on what you would charge?
Sure. I'll go through a really quick example. Let's say we have a $100,000 purchase, a $50,000 rehab, and the property is going to be worth $200K after it's all said and done.
Okay.
So I base my standard rate at 70% loan to after repair value.
Okay.
So that would be the $200K. So you take that's $140,000 that I'm willing to lend on that particular property.
Okay.
How the structure works is you're going to take that $50K in renovation budget, and I'm going to hold back those funds as part of that 140. So that means Karma Lending will only provide $90K to the purchase of that property at sale. So when that happens and the borrower comes to closing, they're going to be responsible for that $10,000 gap in purchase.
Yep.
The origination fee to Karma Lending, a filing fee that I pre-charge for satisfaction along the way.
Yep.
And then finally, any closing costs to the title company. So that is kind of the essence of what you'd expect. Now, that being said, if the ARV was $250, Now the $10,000 gap doesn't exist anymore. And now you're not going to be responsible for bringing that money. You're just responsible for those closing costs and origination fee.
This specific to Karma Lending, do you allow the seller to pay a portion of those closing costs? So like if they had, let's say, $5,000 built in for closing costs and included in the purchase price, can that?
I have allowed seller contributions. Okay. Yep.
As long as they're reasonable, is that how you look at it? Or as long as it fits in the ARV?
I think that human creativity is great. And so if somebody is able to convince the seller to increase their sale price, but then give a $20,000 seller contributions to fully cover those closing costs,
no problem. Okay.
I don't have any problem because the numbers still work.
A lot of times on flip side, I don't think with hard money, a lot of people are always thinking price, and they don't realize they can save themselves some cash. So I just thought it'd be worth
the one thing that I have struggled with is when some of my clients are the wholesaler on the deal.
Oh, sure.
And they have two different entities, right? They have the wholesaling entity and then they have their flipping entity, and they sell or they assign that contract away, thereby taking $20,000-$30,000 of margin away from the deal itself. And that's been something that I've done some pushback on that. Mostly I just put a limit on it, on how much they can actually take on that assignment.
And is that because they're going to be taxed at a higher rate on the gain from the house than like they have more write-offs with their wholesale business?
I don't think,
or why would somebody do that?
I can answer this without even saying.
Okay.
So if you get $20,000 from your wholesale company and you have to put $20,000 down with Hadley, you just came in with no cash.
Boom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's the same as seller contributions.
You're creating a seller carryback from yourself to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not called that, but that's what you're doing.
But the issue was that some of them were taking the kind of what the market rate is now for wholesalers, which is like $40,000 out, and I had huge issues with that.
Sure, because you might only be requiring $10,000. They're taking 40. You're negative 30.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. I want more safety in the deal. I want bigger margins on that deal. So from my standpoint, I've just had a good conversation with clients that have done that, and we've come to an agreement on kind of how that structure works.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about how you analyze a deal?
Sure. It's really straightforward, and I advise every investor to come up with their own standard process of underwriting. For me, it's a standard comp analysis. We go back 6 months, and we try and stay between a quarter mile radius. Doesn't always work. And we try and stay as close to the specs of the house as possible. I typically I will basically move those things around until I can get to about 5 or 6 comps. So if I have to go back 8 months, a year, or if I want to change the radius of the deal and where other prices have sold, so be it. But I feel like that effectively gets me to the price that I want. Now, if those get pretty exaggerated, if I have to go back to a whole year, 365, I've put in essentially a buffer margin on my underwriting model. And so depending on how much I don't have confidence in that particular value at this time, that buffer changes. So standard buffer right now, given I feel the uncertainty of the market and which way it's going to go, I currently sit at 3.5% additional buffer on whatever I evaluated the property at. But there have been times where I've had to go back a year, and I go up to as close to about 6% on the buffer. It all just depends on where my confidence sits on the valuation.
And do you have like North Star MLS access? Is that how you're doing all this?
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, another side hustle hobby is I do have, well, stupidly, I didn't quite understand the requirements of becoming a hard money lender. Some people told me that I needed my individual mortgage license. And so I ended up getting that. And then about 6 months before I did all the studying and was getting ready for the test, somebody said, you don't need that at all. You just need your company license plus a limited broker's license. And I just felt like the biggest fool ever. But at that point...
Because that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, it just was, I paid money and I didn't really need to do it. But
It's also a lot of time, quite a few hours.
Yeah. But I ended up just getting my license anyways, since it was right there. And I also have my real estate license. So a couple of other side hustles I do is I do help on brokering just like residential loans. And I also do, I do help people buy and sell properties too. Mostly just friends and family. But that's how I kind of gained that MLS access to be able to look at those comps.
Yeah, I love listening to other people. I mean, developing like a great CMA is such an art, and everybody does it a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. But I want to stay tight with location. I did a CMA this morning. I went back 3 years because I just so much rather, and this is like a duplex in Plymouth. Mm-hmm. So like kind of tough, right? Yeah. But
few and far between. You mean the duplex in Plymouth?
Yeah, the duplex in Plymouth.
It might be the duplex this year. It's possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, and it was there. The last time a duplex in Plymouth sold was in 2022, and it was the same duplex.
Shut up.
I hit on the subject so much, but if you're not buying a duplex in Minneapolis or St. Paul, you have to be extraordinarily open to area and extraordinarily aggressive when you find one, because they just don't exist. I mean, in any real numbers outside of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. But then what I'll do is I go to InfoSparks, right?
Yep.
And then I'll find what is the median price point trajectory. Then you can make an adjustment. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm not lending somebody $500,000. I'm helping somebody value their home, so the stakes are lower for me, we could say. But I'll do anything to avoid increasing that geographic.
Yeah,
especially in the Twin Cities, like the cities themselves.
And everybody here listening is hearing I do these buffers. I'm very conservative on my numbers. I've been doing this for a year and a half. I am currently only 2.6% off on what they've actually sold on. So
that's good.
I've felt very confident on how things have been going in terms of my valuation model. I think I've only agreed on ARV 3 times, and I've underwritten probably 100 properties so far.
You said agree? You mean agreed with your client?
With the client's ARV?
Well, clients are always optimistic, right? I mean, that's just kind of Isn't that what you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just vain optimism or what they're thinking. They just see, oh my gosh, I'm going to make $80,000 on this property, or I'm not quite sure what it is. I would think if you were running a business, you'd want to be on the more conservative side of your valuation. But I'm not quite sure.
Well, let's be real too. This is a real thing. They want to give you less down payment. So even if they think it's going to sell for 3.25, they're going to tell you 340 or 350 because it lowers their down payment.
Correct.
Obligation. So, I mean, I did that to Renovo Capital too, and they agreed with me. But I put it on the high side of what I thought was reality, and they agreed with my reality, right?
Yeah.
But
good for you.
I mean, if I would have said, "Geez, it might sell for $15,000 less," I realized that was possible. I was still going to make money. I didn't give them that number. I gave them okay, this is realistic, but it is on the high side of realistic. And they said, "Yeah, we agree with you." Turns out I was close. I mean, I was off a little, but I think it was like $7,000 of actual sale price or something.
Yeah.
So it works, right?
But that way, you only brought what? I mean, how much did you bring down on that deal?
Well, I brought more down because and this is another thing I'd like to talk to you about. But in Renovo, and you know this already, but so people know, if you bring their minimum amount of equity and their minimum down payment, and you're new enough, right? I have some track record, but I'm not like their 2-a-month person. Then they would make me fund all of the remodel up front, and then they would reimburse me, right? Mm-hmm. And I really didn't I did the math. I was okay with that if I had to, but I did the math, and if I put down what they wanted me to put down so that they would fund the remodel, it was essentially the same money on the first draws.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then I don't have to worry about it, and I save interest, and they charged me a lower interest. I save interest because I'm not financing as much, and they charged me a lower origination fee. When I added all 3 of those up, I don't recall my exact down payment, but I think it was maybe 20% instead of 10%. Mm-hmm. And that created like a 65, or it must have been, I think I was at a 65 ARV model, right? And somewhere in there, you probably
so your interest rate went down, and
you know their deals better than me. Yeah. So I don't remember the exact numbers because they're not important to me now.
Of course.
But they would fund the remodel then. So Can you talk to how you handle that situation, right? And for those who don't understand, so for those who don't understand, if you don't put enough down, what you're going to do is not only are you going to take all this money, and the money will be there, the 50,000 in your example will be sitting there, but in order for you to access, let's say, a $10,000 draw, you pay the 10,000, have the house inspected, and then get the 10,000 back, right?
Yeah.
And you have other options. So what are those?
Well, again, it's based on the target audience that I've been going after. So all these people are very, very experienced.
Yeah.
And most of them I couldn't even get when I was at Renovo Capital because our structures were just not competitive.
Pricing, you mean?
Pricing,
Right.
pricing and level of financing, et cetera. So I have one person that does a lot of rehabs every year, and he wanted 100% financing, and so that's what I've given him. Now, I charge him more than what he would get elsewhere, but he's totally fine doing it that way where he doesn't have to think about any money whatsoever. So it really just, everything's a conversation, everything's negotiable, and it ultimately just comes down to my level of comfort in working with that individual and the level of risk with reward that I'm taking on each one of these deals.
Right, gotcha.
But
so
so for-
yours is a little different because you're working with such experienced people.
Yeah.
If someone was listening to this and they weren't flipping a couple a month, they could expect what level do
Yeah,
you
I
think
think-
like the typical lender might start saying, well, we'll fund your remodels as opposed to what do you call that, by the way? Is it like pre-funding the draw versus the customer paying it versus
we call it advance versus reimbursement.
advance versus reimbursement?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would, if you're brand new to this thing and you're going to a Pine Financial, you should very much expect that you're going to be doing a reimbursement model. So, to what Tim was saying earlier, what ends up happening is you bring up your down payment, and then you also need to provide, I don't know, it probably is anywhere from $5 to $30,000 in rehab funds up front to start the project. They will then come to do an inspection to see how things are going. And if everything looks great, Pine Financial will then administer the next round of funds, or essentially reimburse your $30,000 so that you can then take that $30,000 and continue on with the project. And again, that's all about a private lender lowering their risk tolerance, right? If you're putting in your own money to start the rehab, great, that's your own money. I'm not adding more fuel to the fire and putting myself in harm's way. Now, what I've really loved about the reimbursement model for some people, when I would talk to people when I was at Renovo, is I would say, look, there is an incredible Home Depot card that is like 0% for I can't remember what it is now, but at the time, I think it was like 8 months of no interest. You can just let it sit there. It would had to go through your personal, not your business. But I just kept telling them, look, just do it that way. Buy all your materials there. You can probably find some workers that'll do carries so that you pay them, middle or towards the end of the project. There are ways to get around it where you're not actually using real liquidity to move forward on the project.
And that's a way to save a little money, right? Because you're saving the 10 to 14% or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly. So there are very creative ways, and I always advise if you ever find yourself in a position where you're struggling to come up with the next amount for the draw or an amount for a down payment amount, I just advise everybody to reach out to your local Facebook communities and just ask the question, I'm a little behind on this, or I just need a little bit more money here. Does anybody have thoughts on like what I can do? Maybe there's a HELOC I could think about. Maybe there's a way that I could use credit. Creative financing is such a hot topic, and there are so many ways in which you can get deals done. So I advise people to just, when you think you've hit a rut, you probably haven't. You probably just haven't come up with the right idea yet on how to make a solution.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then when you make that Facebook post, maybe you get some advice, but you probably get some people who are going to be like, hey, I'll loan you $12,000, right?
Probably.
That's maybe where you're going with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do gap financing or anything like that. I don't have, there's levels of risk to what I'm willing to do. And so far, I haven't been willing to commit to second position financing on any of my deals yet. So Maybe in the future, but I mean, luckily I haven't come across anything where I had to really consider something like that.
Right. But, full disclosure, on my very last deal, I called Hadley to ask him about that because, we had talked about many things, but he was out of money, except he had like I
had $12,000.
I was just say 18. He had a miscellaneous amount. And I'm like, well, would you consider that amount is too low for me to do anything major with, but it could become gap financing. I'm like, would you consider it? And we talked about it. And frankly, it ended up not making sense for either one of us, right? Mm-hmm. But it is still something like you should have conversations.
Yeah.
Because it's okay for Hadley to say no, but if you don't bring it up, you don't even know, like you could make the decision for him, right? And
correct.
And so many times I've done this, I'm guilty of this, but making the decision for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I had to refinance yesterday. Someone locked with me and I said, I don't think you're going to refinance. And here's why, but I'm going to offer this to you anyway. And he said, oh my gosh, I love it. Let's do it. And he locked within. I was like, okay. So that's just one right there, right? Like,
yeah. You never know.
I had pre-decided he wasn't going to refinance and he locked on the first call. Mm-hmm. Past client, there's lots of trust there and stuff. But like, I was like, I think we're talking about like, what's what's the deal you want to refinance at? Yeah. He's like, I want to refinance at this right now. Okay. Right. So
I think if somebody gets anything out of this podcast today, it's that everybody in every single specific part of this industry can be an idiot. But in every single specific corner of that industry, there's an expert that's willing to help and willing to give their guidance and potentially help you through that solution. And so I always say, if you don't know how to fix that problem, just hunt around and find somebody that probably does know how to create that solution, because it's very likely in this really strong Minnesota, I don't know if this is other states, but I've found that in this state community, people are really willing to help and provide guidance on a potential solution. So if you ever feel like you're not smart in a particular subject, just talk to somebody that does know what they're doing, because I guarantee you they'll most likely help.
Yeah. And the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Facebook group would be a good place to start, right? Because we're all in there answering questions for people.
Or just call Tim. I mean...
Well, when it comes to financing...
Is there like a Tim hotline we could, just put up here? But yeah, no, we've got two experienced people right here that I'm sure would always be willing to take a phone call and be willing to help in anything that you might need.
Yeah. And if we don't know the answer, we certainly know someone who does.
Exactly.
If you know us, you're only 1 degree removed, right?
Yep.
From the expert. And we've already dealt with the idiots.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been idiots ourselves.
Absolutely.
And, we sit here on this podcast as experts of certain particular areas of the industry, but that does not mean we're experts in other fields. And that does not mean that we're masters of what we're currently doing either. We're constantly learning, and I just advise people to do the same.
Mm-hmm. So someone comes to you again. Someone comes to you with a hot property. It's a cash offer, and it needs to close quick. Right? That's pretty typical. And I'm always surprised at the hard money lenders who say it's going to take a month. I've seen that happen. It happens. They're out there. Usually they're actually very price aggressive, right? There are hard money lenders out there at 8%, but they also take a month. They act like a bank, Anyway. How quick can you close? What's normal? What's fast for you, and what's normal for you?
Yeah, I'd love to take a step back. We've talked about, how potentially expensive I am as a hard money lender. I think people might not know why anybody would use hard money lending.
Yeah.
If, why wouldn't I just use a regular bank? And I think it's threefold. Credit worthiness. If you have a low credit score, it becomes really difficult to work with a traditional bank. Red tape. Typically, when you're working with a regular bank, each and every time you're doing a fix and flip loan, you have to go through the same exercise of putting together all of these, all of your docs in a row, make sure that your income statement is right. I just do it one and done. So as soon as you've been approved by Karma Lending, you're essentially approved for life. And then finally, to the question that you're asking right now, it's quickness to close. If you got a hot property and you're trying to put in an offer and you say that it's going to take you 45 days to close with a traditional bank, as opposed to somebody that's offering pretty much the same price, except they can close in 7 to 14 days, what is the seller going to pick? They're going to pick the one that can close quicker. So from that standpoint, I've had a client make me close in 48 hours. I didn't like it, so don't ask me. But from my standpoint, I typically try and ask for 10 business days. That's to say, if I already have a relationship with you, or I know who you are, and you've got it yourself in a sticky situation, and I have funds, I know there's a lot of ifs there, but I would be willing to help, and I can get things done in a flash. It all really depends on whether or not the title company we have a relationship with, and everything's kind of set up and ready to go with them. From as far as just setting a wire, it's pretty straightforward and easy to do.
But you still got to underwrite it and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Obviously, your current 11 people you are very comfortable with, right? It's not the people, then it's just the deal.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I told the person that asked me to do 48 hours, I'm like, I told you I didn't want to do that. And he's like, yeah, I know, but can you just do it this one time? I'll try it. And I was like, of course, no problem. And again, like if you prioritize that deal at this point, you just look at it and you say to yourself, okay, I can underwrite it in an hour. I can then send over my docs probably in another hour. From there, I can typically get through all of title documentation, again, roughly in an hour. It all depends on how quickly it gets to me, but all in all, hard money lending can move pretty quickly. What comes into effect is if they require appraisals. And so these more national hard money lenders or bigger institutional funds, they typically do require some sort of third-party appraisal, and that can push it back. Again, they're quicker than traditional banks, but that can push it back anywhere from 10 to 15 business days, depending.
Right, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Like the ones I'm thinking of that are super cheap are big. They're nationwide, or most, maybe not nationwide, but like they might
close to.
Yeah, close to, right?
Most aren't because of the Dakotas. Nobody wants to play ball in the Dakotas.
And New York State
Vermont,
is really hard.
Yeah,
there's a few others.
There's a few, but almost none of the hard money lenders nationally do all 50, but they're damn close.
Yeah, damn close. Yep. But they're also institutional money. Think like they're hedge fund and or something like that, right? Or institutional. So they're a lot more structured like a bank, and they really only work with people who have extreme experience. Even like the kind of people you're talking about, right? But but a lot slower. So that's there. The appraisals. Do you ever have a situation where you do require an appraisal? Like you're just not confident, and what would that look like for you?
Typically, it's only commercial. I did require a commercial appraisal for a larger multifamily that somebody wanted to do a fix and hold on. But other than that, I just do my own underwriting, and so far,
yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe we have to come up with a sound effect for knock on wood.
Pop, pop, pop. Knock on wood. But so far, everything's worked out just fine on that. So I'm able to move with particular speed, which is great.
Sweet.
One of my questions here, I'm crossing out. Have you ever been burned? Crossed out.
Nice. No, I have not been burned. So, I mean, again... So
we
far,
have a superstitious stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this goes all the way back to what you were talking. The first question you asked, which is how do you get into it? I have 5 years of having over 100 clients when I was at Renewable Capital, so I knew who was really good. I knew, unfortunately, people to avoid, and I just. As soon as my non-compete expired, I just kind of went right after the people that I knew I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
They should have made that longer, huh?
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't think they really care considering their dissolution, but
yeah, and that had nothing to do with you. They were given.
I like to think it was.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Just kidding around, but yeah, that's. I mean, at this point, it's neither here nor there, and I'm just so thankful for the opportunity they gave me because again, he had hired 2 loan originators, people that were literally in the industry before he ultimately looked to me. And I think he just said, I just need somebody in sales that's going to go out and figure this out. And luckily he took a chance, and now I'm here doing exactly what I want to do, which is awesome.
That's really cool. That's the way we want it.
So what percentage of deals, if any, that you're lending on right now are MLS?
None.
Okay. My next question was, all right,
Very good.
and I suppose, I mean, you're working with these established flippers who are full-time. That would make sense.
I mean, but I'm curious your perspective as you're a realtor, right? I mean, I think sellers are still obnoxiously high on their valuations. I mean, I feel like everything you see listed has a price cut eventually. I think the pricing has been relatively unrealistic. So I just haven't seen a lot of people biting on anything on the MLS from my standpoint.
From the perspective of trying to flip a house, good freaking luck finding something on the MLS and being able to flip it and having that margin. So I would agree with that. I don't know if I would paint with such a wide brush as to say that, like, you know, if you price a home correctly, it's in a good area, it'll sell.
It'll still get multiples.
I think you two are kind of talking about two different. You're talking more about for your clients, whereas you're talking more for retail clients. Right?
I think he's actually right. I'm talking wide painting stroke of just saying I think in general sellers are way too aggressive on pricing.
Okay.
Whether it is on the as-is properties or on just regular retail home sales. That's just my personal opinion. Because to your point, if it's priced well, in the right location, you're still probably going to get multiples.
Definitely.
There's still like plenty of buyers out there looking to take a bite of the apple. You know, I think there's this weird standoff that's happening right now between buyers, sellers, Trump, the Fed, all trying to kind of figure out when interest rates are going to start coming down and affordability hopefully becomes a little bit more attainable. But I don't know. It's fascinating right now, and I can't wait to see what happens for realtors such as yourself during next month, where it's a very and highly anticipated rate drop from the Fed.
So a lot of my business is small multifamily, like 2 to 10 unit. That's kind of my world. And I think a lot of the standoff, just for me personally, was 2024. We had my volume was way down.
It was the worst year since 2009 for mortgages.
2024 was?
Which, you know, most of your people are not paying cash. So
yeah. Refinances were probably dead, right? Like close to zero.
Yeah. I mean, the volume, like, so what is that, 15 years? That's the lowest volume in 15 years. So that's saying something, you know?
Yeah.
My personal sales were 50% of what they had been 2021, 2022, 2023. 50% drop, and then this year I'm having the best year ever. And I don't think I'm a reflection of every agent at all.
I think it's the deal analysis live.
It could be. We started this deal analysis live.
I'm kind of kidding, but I'm kind of not. I think you started getting out there again, and that helped. But.
No, and I was going through some personal stuff, and I thought I wanted to start like a home services business. So whatever. Not completely on the market, but some of it I got distracted because the market was so slow. Right. So instead of personally tripling down on marketing myself as an agent, I was look at this shiny thing. I'll sell some houses. I'll try to do this. So anyways, I think the standoff really was 2024 when you had multifamily sellers in this 2 to 10 unit space looking at comps from the previous years, thinking it's worth this. Okay, finally I'll sell. Nothing cash flows because of interest rates.
Correct.
And yet the comps are kind of like holding up these 2 to 4 unit properties, especially. And so I think what I've experienced in 2025, these sellers are finally like, okay, I have to sell. So I'm doing more contract for deed deals than ever.
I believe it.
And just getting creative. And multifamily owners are coming down to earth. But yeah, it's hard to even, real estate is so local. Ignore national real estate headlines, people who are listening. Or maybe not to ignore, but talk to someone local to really hear what's going on here. But even the Twin Cities is such a big market for you to say, because in your world, you're seeing sellers being unrealistic. But there's so many different markets within our market. Totally. I'm very, like the single family I sell is typically like Class A and B, St. Paul and South Minneapolis, right? So that's so specific.
Totally.
So yeah, I kind of agree with you, but also I have my own perspective.
Yeah, I mean, to your point though, it shouldn't be painted with such a wide stroke. Because I was just in Sotheby's the other day, and they're saying they like can't stop selling their really high end lake homes. And and people are just coming in with all cash. So, I will take a step back on what I said earlier, but I do think there is a purveying ideology of just people not seeing eye to eye on what the value is. But I think it's going to come soon here real quick with continued rate drops. I do.
And when you say come soon, can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. The Fed has been very, very open about saying that they're going to be looking to rate cuts next month.
Today. Today.
Oh, today. Well, I think they also... Okay. Well, fantastic. Yeah. That's right. We're in September.
Yeah, it's September 17th is the date we're talking about now.
Did I mention on this podcast I have an 8-month-old? Yes,
you did.
Yes.
You've been
in
absolved.
September. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Today. That's right.
I mean, we're like 2 hours from the announcement.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to learn more about real estate and all that jazz, definitely listen to Fed. I don't agree with everything he says, but I love listening to Fed Powell's Q&A. It's one of the few times where you don't feel like you're listening to a politician. I feel like he just tells it like it is, and I find it super educational on all of his Q&As after he's made they've done their meetings. So just tune in. It's free on YouTube. Just highly recommend it.
And
also, the UFO congressional hearings. Tune into those.
Yeah?
Have you been keeping up with that?
No.
There was just a new one. They released a video of some kind of like sphere, that they keep finding. And this is like Air Force video, probably somewhere in the Middle East. And then some kind of missile shoots at the sphere and it just bounces off. And they just released this in a congressional hearing. This is from the military. And yet nobody's talking about it. So.
My favorite one, did you see that Mexico had them too? Mexico had their own.
The spheres?
No, hearings on UFOs. And they actually brought out a mummified, or not mummified, but a dead alien body. Did you see that?
I think that turned out to be incorrect.
Was it? I was just curious. I only saw a quick thing. I didn't even stay on it, but I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot out there, folks.
Yeah, it could have been AI for all I know.
Yeah, we digress. Yeah. Sorry. This is not the UFO podcast here.
Don't we wish?
Yeah.
Is there money in UFOs? No, I'm kidding.
There's a lot of money in talking about UFOs on the internet.
Yeah.
Is there really?
I personally have not been contacted by an alien for money so far. But I will let you know, and I will rejoin this podcast as soon as it happens.
Well, Tim and I share the opinion that we think this general time, the last year, whatever you call it, like is an opportune time, and those of us who are trying to scoop up properties right now are going to look smart in the medium term. Do you see? I mean, I don't want to speak for you. Do you want to?
I've said it 100 times on the podcast. I absolutely believe that to be true, and I'm trying to buy as many myself personally to take advantage of that.
I always say deal's a deal. Doesn't matter what time it is. So if you know what you're doing and you understand valuations and you take into account what the market is doing on the back end, you're going to make money no matter what you do. It's to your point kind of earlier of kind of getting sidetracked and thinking, oh, maybe this is maybe being a realtor isn't the right thing. Maybe I should look into other things. I think those are the perfect times where you say, look, people are wavering in this industry. This is where you double down, and now there's less competition to find those deals. So to me, another reason why I love this industry is that there's always going to be a situation where you can come out on top. The only unfortunate situation is if there's a massive crash like 2008 or something like that, where pretty much everybody's dead in the water. It didn't matter what industry you're in. So that would be really kind of my understanding of what things look like. And again, I think if you feel that people are wavering in a particular industry in real estate, I think that's when you just double down and say, no way, I'm going to become the even bigger expert. I'm going to be the one that stays behind and make sure that everybody gets what they need. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I think that goes along. People who make money in any market are problem solvers, right? If everything is a nail to you because all you have is a hammer, you got a problem. But if you have a hammer and you have a saw, you have a circular saw, but also a whatever jigsaw and et cetera, and you have all the tools in your belt and you're willing to get creative, you can always make it work, right?
Yep.
Are you guys working on any particular cool projects right now? Like, I don't know how involved you are in day-to-day monitoring what you're lending on, but anything you want to speak of, like neighborhood? We really like neighborhood-specific stuff here.
Okay. I'm all over the map. My clients are, some are in Cambridge, some have been in Rochester. I've done a one in the western suburbs. And then the rest have either been in St. Paul or Minneapolis. So I had, again, similar to kind of actually my family's multifamily portfolio, my loan profile has been actually more 50% suburbs and 50% Twin Cities. I know that's not a super exciting answer, but yeah, I mean, we're just kind of doing standard single family flips. There's really nothing that's sexy about it. And yeah. Dang it. I really wish I had like a cool thing to say. Hopefully, Tim, you can save me and say you're doing something really cool.
Well, I think maybe there's some learning there that like these flipping machines, if you want to be a professional flipper with a system that makes money consistently, you're not really doing cool, unique stuff, right?
Correct.
It's like boilerplate, like here's a post-war home, rip it down, build it up, paint it gray and white, and sell it.
I mean, the people that are really into this business, they're buying the same PVC wholesale because they know that they're going to use all the leftover on the next flip. And so, I all of my clients, other than the one person I used in Sioux Falls, they all have the same thing that they use every single time when they do their flips. And that leads to getting the construction done faster and understanding your numbers way better. And so both of those, I think, really add to the success of these really experienced flippers.
Think about it this way: if every one of your materials costs varied by 10 to 15% each time, because you're literally just like finger up in the air figuring out what you want that time, that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can't do it in mass and in bulk.
Now, I will say, I should caveat by saying all of my deals, the highest ARV I've done is $750. So I haven't dealt with anything in the higher end realm. That I would assume, I don't know if you've had Corey Wright on this podcast.
We have actually, yep.
Somebody like that. But that's where you take your time, really think about what a buyer of that price level wants. And now you're looking to be really creative on the design front. But for my stuff, which is primarily 500 or less, just churn out the same thing over and over again, because that's pretty much what every buyer kind of wants in that buyer pool.
Totally. I think we could probably wrap this up in a few minutes, but can you just tell us a little bit about your short-term rentals and like what parts of town are they in, and what have you been seeing for like occupancy rates lately?
Yeah. Minnesota is great except for February and parts of January. So it hurts our occupancy pretty significantly. We sit anywhere from 70 to 80% occupancy year round for our Airbnbs. We have 2 in Plymouth, 2 in Wayzata, although that's probably going to change very quickly with the new ban that they're going to pass into law. And then we have 1 in Minneapolis, but right across the street from Edina. So it's technically Edina, but Edina doesn't allow them. So we're as close as we can to the Edina area. And then we have 1 out in Manasota Key, Florida. And that property has really, really pleasantly surprised us. We thought for sure it would have a very similar Minnesota flavor in that the summer probably wouldn't be booked that often because it's so hot. However, what we didn't anticipate, and this has been the best part about Airbnbs and short-term rentals, is I have not been able to anticipate at all what the appetite is for these properties. Is that Floridians, central Floridians, are booking it during the summertime to get away from the extreme inland heat and try, because we're right on the beach on the Gulf side. And so we're just constantly getting flow from actual Floridian citizens to come out and get away from like the super heat during that time. And then from there, the cool thing about that property is that we're getting international people all over the place that are coming in and enjoying just a romantic couple getaway and stuff like that.
It's on the coast, but I'm not familiar. Where is it? Like
it's 45 minutes south of Sarasota if you're familiar with where that is.
Yep, okay.
And then it's about 50 minutes north of Fort Myers.
Okay.
So that's kind of where Manasota Key is. But again, like going back to just not anticipating who rents these, I just came across like a bad situation. We were trying to get an Airbnb license in Stillwater, and at the time they were only allowing ADA compliant Airbnbs in order to get a license, which means the entire house needed to be wheelchair accessible. They've now gotten rid of that, of course, while I had a property there. But during that time, we didn't really know what to do with that property. And my wife and I love Stillwater. And so we actually just moved into that property and said, well, I think we might have a decent success with our Plymouth property. Let's just see what happens. And sure enough, that property is doing 80 to 90% occupancy. And it's been remodel people that just continue to book for long stretches of time.
Tell us about the property real quick. How
Sure,
big is it?
It's just a 5-bedroom, 2,400 square feet Rambler. Nothing special.
It's got a fountain, 18-car garage.
No, there's really nothing special about it. I suppose if you want to say it's got a really good design because we live there and we put in our own like artistic feel on it. Sure, but again, there's nothing special about that property at all. And yet we are able to get people to just want to stay in the same school district for their kids while they do a huge remodel gut on a kitchen or whatever in their property in Wayzata, Orono, or Minnetonka. And so that is like constantly filled our reservations, which has been, well, remarkable and great all at the same time.
And these are folks who are staying for at least like 21 days, probably mostly a month.
Yeah.
Do you have your minimum on Airbnb set to like 1 month now at this point? Or
No.
you just take them as they come? And then follow-up question, if you don't mind sharing, what are you getting for a month on that house? Gross.
Sure. So first question was minimum stays. So the city of Plymouth instituted that it needed to be a 3-day minimum. So we have that on there. And that really has not caused any issues, and people come typically for weddings and things of that nature for the summer. And then, like I said, it's either a big remodel during the wintertime, or more interestingly, you get people that had unfortunate accidents happen, and insurance will then cover the reservation stay there. And then we're averaging gross probably $7,200 a month on a month on that property. Yeah, I mean, February is like $1,000 if we're lucky, and then July and August is somewhere anywhere from 10 to 13,000. So, we do quite well at that property.
I'm gonna send this clip to my friend who owns a house in Plymouth, and they want to move further west, kind of similar to you guys. Because you said you're in Wayzata now.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Is that further west than Plymouth? South.
It's southeast.
Yeah, whatever.
Or just
Whatever,
plain
man.
south. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's there.
Yeah.
They're right next to each other.
Well, cool. You got anything else, Tim? I think we should wrap this sucker up.
No, man. Just thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. I've listened to your podcast a couple of times, and you guys are doing great work providing value. And if I can ever come back and provide more, just let me know. I'd love to help if I can.
Let's do an update.
Let's do it, man.
If you ever come up with a good story, maybe a deal that goes bad or whatever.
One will go bad before too long. Don't worry.
I mean,
about
not necessarily.
Way to put it out there.
Well, it's not always, you know.
Although I always felt that would be like such a fun Halloween special of just like having people call in. That's a good idea. Having people call in and say, yeah, this was a nightmare, and like, this is the big learning that you can take from this, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, no, thank you for saying that, Tim.
Yeah,
if I do ever have a really shitty experience on something, I'll sure to give you a call. Yeah. But thank you guys so much.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks,
dude. What's going on, Tim? What are you doing today?
Well, Fed Day today. So in about an hour, the Fed is going to announce what its plans are for a rate cut, and then afterwards, Jerome Powell will have a question, like a prepared presentation with a question and answer. Hadley actually talked about it during the episode. Most people don't realize it, but like any Fed cut, well, unless the Fed doesn't cut. But if they cut a quarter point today, that's what the markets expect, and it will really mean nothing to current mortgage rates. However, what Jerome Powell says, both in his speech and his question and answer, have a huge impact on how the market will react today. I'm expecting it to go up or down and probably not stay the same. So I think if I were going to bet money, and you said, Tim, how much, give me $100 on one side, I would say rates are going to go up today. That's my guess.
Really?
I locked 9 people yesterday for that reason. Yeah.
Got it. Hadley thought they were going down. Didn't he say that?
Over the future, in the short term, yeah, or I mean over the long term. I just mean, what do I think is going to happen in the next 24 to 40 hours? I think we're going to see a bounce up, and the reason why I say that is this: I expect, just like everyone else, that the Fed will cut a quarter point. What the market is going to look for then is, what is the future expectations? Like, what do they plan to do next, right? And so Jerome Powell has seemed to be very cool on lowering rates. Matter of fact, he's had a lot of pressure just to do this one. So I think what he's going to say is, we're lowering it now, but we're cautious on lowering it in the future. And anything other than expect more rate cuts is going to raise rates, right? If he says like, oh, we're going to, you could expect that we will likely cut rates at the next session, we should see rates go down even further.
Wait, but do you think they're going up or down?
I think they're going up.
Okay. But did you just say they're going down? Or no? You think he's going to raise them, but then he's going to say they're going to cut them?
He doesn't do anything.
Okay.
No. So so what we're talking about is the mortgage market and how that's affected, right?
Yeah.
And so the bond traders are going to go, what can I expect at the next session? They already have an expectation for this one, right? And they lowered rates. What was it? The 26th of last month, interest rates dropped. That was when, pretty much everyone decided, based on things that were said, that the Fed would likely cut rates at this meeting. Okay. So rates already dropped that amount. Now what's going on is what's going to happen next, right? And so if today they drop it by more than a quarter, or they drop it by a quarter and they say, gosh, we really are seeing economic signs of concern, and they give indication that they're likely to drop it at the next meeting, we'll see rates drop again. Right. But if they say,
but you don't think that's going to happen.
I do not think that's going to happen. What I think is going to happen is they're going to say something like, hey, we dropped it now because we are seeing some job concerns. That's the reason why they're dropping it today. But we're very concerned about the effects of inflation.
I'm sorry. My disconnect is here. You just said what I think is going to happen. We're dropping it today, which means lowering the rate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you think they're going to raise the rate?
No. Okay.
Luckily, this is all on film. So
yeah. Okay. This is exactly what people think. So great questions. Okay. So the fact that they drop it today is already expected, and that will have no bearing on mortgage rates.
I understand that. I understand the disconnect.
Yep.
But you think rates are going to go? When you say I think rates are going up, you're saying I think mortgage rates are going up.
I think mortgage rates are going to go up.
But you think the Fed is going to cut?
Yes.
So you don't think the Fed is going to raise the Fed rate?
No, absolutely not.
That's what I've been thinking. You're saying this whole time, and it's like, dude, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
No. Okay. I do not mean that. I apologize if I even kind of made it sound like that. No, the Fed rate and the mortgage rates are separate, which I think the Fed will lower the rates today. That's not the important part of what happens today. Everyone expects that. If that doesn't happen, oh man, hell's going to break loose. But I'm not expecting that. But what I'm expecting is, instead of them lowering the rate today and saying, gosh, we think we're probably lowering rates several more times before the end of the year, I think they're going to have wording that's cautiously worded, but basically says, don't get too optimistic that rates are going to keep going down in the near future, because we're really afraid of inflation, right? Mm-hmm. And unless we see some improvement in inflation and some worsening of the job market, we're likely to keep things pretty level, right? I believe that's how it's going to come out. And if it comes out like that, you should probably expect that mortgage rates will go up, even though the Fed lowered the rate today.
Sure. Okay.
That's what I anticipate. Obviously, I hope that's not true, right? I mean, my hope is that they say something much different. It's just the current political market and just what they've said in the past is just, I think that's the more likely option.
Is there something to be said for Trump, who just wants low rates so the stock market can go up? I mean, that's simplifying what he wants, but that's what he's kind of throwing out there. He's putting pressure on the Fed, and what do you think about that?
Well, what do I think about it? Not because he's Trump, but I think he's right, because I believe that I know the way they mark inflation and the way they mark the jobs report are both very highly flawed, I mean, we've seen that, right? So, like, for example, the BLS, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, gives out all these job numbers, right? And they talk about all these job creations. And then every so many months after that, they keep lowering how many jobs are actually created. It's just a flawed system. They're not partisan in the sense that they're doing it because Biden or Trump. They have a very flawed way of looking at it.
But Trump is uniquely vocal about you need to lower interest rates.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but because he knows it matters, right? I mean, and it does matter. And he's just vocal, right? But okay, so on one side we have a much worse job market than anyone's ever admitting, and you can call unemployment whatever you want. It's not actually accurate to how many people are not working, right? There's like, what do they call it? There's like a global employment, and then there's the unemployment number. And they talk about that because, like, if you're not actively looking for a job, you're not technically unemployed, right?
Sure.
Anyway, job market's worse than people think. That's my opinion. And I think there's plenty of stats, including ADP payrolls and some other things. And the reason why they're cutting rates today is because there's a lot of data out there saying jobs are not as good as we think. And then, so that's one side of it. And then the other side is how they do, how they calculate out inflation is also flawed. It's looking backwards too far. So current inflation versus what inflation was is heavily dependent on housing. It's like there's core CPI and PCE. Those are two different measures of inflation. And depending on the thing, it's just under 40 or just under 45% of the formula is just housing, okay? And for long-term housing, so they measure it in a couple different ways, but long-term housing, they do a 12-month look back, a rolling average. And so we're still working off of inflation numbers in rents that are 12 months old. Every month we get closer to now, but I was looking at that. If you took a look at the last 3 months of housing data, there's no inflation in housing, but there was, and we're coming out of it, right? And so that's part of it. So they're late to the game because of that. The other thing they do is something called owner's equivalent to rent. And this is what they do for that. They call up someone, it is a phone call, that knows nothing about housing, and they say, "Hey, Adam, we know you're a homeowner, but if you could rent your house today, what do you think you'd rent it for?" Whatever the person says is that person's rent on that house, owner's equivalent rent, and that's how they factor what the house would rent for if it was a rental and how much it has inflated or deflated.
How sure are you? Just making are you just speaking more abstractly, or is the system literally calling a homeowner and asking them to come up with the amount? You sure?
It's a phone call.
You're sure that's what it is? So they're going to do this.
And it's a small sample size. Yeah.
They're going to do this however many times, and they're just going to ask the homeowner.
It's a part of a bigger series of questions. Yeah. It's not only that, right? That's how they get, well, that's how they also find out if someone's on unemployment is, are you actively looking for a job?
Oh, sure. Okay.
No, I'm not. Okay. Then you're not counting in the employment number. Are you employed? Yes or no? It's more than one phone. It's more than one question.
And if they call, if they're calling, there's so many homeowners where you're going to call. And if you ask that question, like if you ask me, what am I going to rent this house for? What am I gonna say? You know what I mean?
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah.
Like,
I didn't understand homeowner's equivalent of rent until this last mortgage downturn, right? Like I'd heard the term many, many times. When I actually found out what it was, I was just floored that they even bother. I mean, it's a silly question.
Yeah.
It's supposed to get at something, and at one point, when we had very limited data, it might have meant something to someone, but we have much better data. Like, for example, we should no longer use BLS, because what they do is BLS uses a couple different models, but their most prominent one's called the birth-death model. They're not talking about people, they're talking about businesses. So they say there were, 10,000 businesses born and 5,000 dead. So we have positive 5,000 businesses. And the average small business creates X amount of jobs. So that's how many jobs we created this month. That is, and then they add government jobs, right? And then that's their model, right? Or that's one way they do it, birth-death model. Well, it's highly flawed.
No kidding.
What they could do is ADP report. So the ADP report is like they process payroll. You know, how many payrolls? Yeah. And I mean, you have to know what percentage of they are of the market, but as you fine tune it and you use algorithms to go, ADP is, 39.6% of the market. And, if their payrolls go up 6%, we know that jobs were, up whatever, 3.1% or I don't know, right? Like I made those numbers up, but like there is a way to make it much, much more accurate, but we don't do it.
Why don't they call people who are actually renting houses and ask how much are you paying in rent? And then follow-up question.
We do know that data.
Follow-up question. Have you ever heard of anyone who's gotten one of these phone calls? Because they sound like they're made up.
Yeah, I've received a phone call about a survey. I don't know if it was that, but like I've been asked similar questions a long time ago in my 20s. It's been a long time.
By the government?
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, there is telemarketers, right? I mean, they're hired by...
Oh, interesting. Yeah. It's like a third party.
It's not. Yeah, you're not getting a call from like, you're not getting
a certain department.
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we think mortgage rates are going to go slightly up, and it's funny because I mean I don't know much about this like political stuff, but it's like the worse if the economy does a little bit worse, rates will go down, and that'll make our assets go up. It's so like freaking crazy, I
would say I have a high level view of it in many ways, right? I mean, there's certainly I listen. By the way, I listen to a 6 to 10 minute video every single day about this stuff from a guy named Barry Habib. So I've learned almost everything I know about this from that person.
Sure.
And I mean, there's other mortgage commentators, but he's the one I'm drawn to because he's super accurate and very well respected, and he teaches it. He doesn't just say, here's job report. He says, here's why this job report is flawed, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the problems we see. So he has a team of like 6 or 7 people that he uses. And when these job reports come out, they look deeper, right? They pick them apart, so to speak, and go, why do we think this is good or bad?
Okay.
And the big thing the things I'm telling you right now is the things that he's been talking about for a while. He actually wrote a letter to an open letter to President Trump specifically about how core CPI is inaccurate because of the way they do rent. I mean,
and this is a mortgage guy.
Yeah, it's posted on his website. If you want to go to MBS Highway, that's MBS, which is mortgage-backed securities highway.com, and just search for letter to President Trump. He outlines it perfectly. He explains exactly why it's flawed and why they should change the system and what he thinks they should do. It's a great letter.
Cool. Well, do we have anything to plug, Tim? I guess we're not exactly sure when we're going to drop.
Yeah, we don't know when it's going to drop, but the biggest thing you could do to help us out, we definitely, like the last 7 days, we doubled the amount of listeners.
Really?
And so, yeah, and or minimum listen episodes, I guess maybe is a better way to put it. I don't know if it's the number of listeners, but if you could send this to 2 people right now that you think would enjoy this episode and would enjoy the podcast, please do that, right? Because that's going to really help us out rather than just posting on social. Like if you know someone who's interested in real estate investing, please send it to at least 2 people today. This episode.
These views, I'm looking at the views, they're good ticking up. Thank you. My friend Jeff is sending, he's a great example. He technically should be disincentivized to send this to people because he's in a competing position with me, and yet he's sent this thing to so many folks, and man, is that powerful when you can do that. So thank you guys, everyone who's sharing this. We really appreciate it, especially Jeff.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's it for today's show. You can visit the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing.com website for show notes, tips, tricks, and other local real estate investing information. Adam and Tim would like to meet with you. To schedule a one-on-one meeting with either Adam or Tim, go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule.